Welcome to Reverent and Rebellious, a safe space for faith-based conversations on the things that nobody seems to want to talk about these days. We are reverent, we value truth, we elevate scripture, but we are also rebellious. We shatter myths and we destroy dogma, so jump in. Join us, Logan, Pat, and me, the brother Peter, as we get reverent and we get rebellious.
What's up, everybody?
Not the temperature.
Not the temperature. That's exactly
Isn't
right.
it awesome?
I
Man,
love
it is so nice.
It is. It's cold out there.
I like
Does this take you back home? Y'all got cold weather out there pretty good, don't you?
It really didn't get that cold for very long.
Yeah.
You know, usually you count in January, early February, it would get frosty, and we'd get a little snow every now and then. But mostly in the wintertime in Washington State, in western Washington, it's just gray.
Gotcha.
40 degrees.
Yeah.
Just enough to make you mad.
Yeah.
More toward the coast.
Yeah, because what happens is, the Cascade Mountains run right down the center. And this little geography lesson here. And so the weather systems come in and they bump up against the mountains and they just stay there. They don't move. And then they start to leak over the mountains just a little bit, just enough to water the eastern side of the state. And the eastern side gets cold, cold, cold. I went to college over there. And
Hold on.
What?
One of our phones is giving some feedback. It's about to drive me nuts. There, it stopped. Pat, put yours back up there. All right, it's Pat.
Yeah, see?
Because I've been taking mine and moving it. I'm like, dadgummit, I've been moving it everywhere.
It's just it's Pat to cause static.
I think it's because of the cord, maybe.
It's what I do.
Yeah, I know. You just disrupt everything.
I try.
Sorry.
So I went to college there one time, and I actually walked out. I was going to class, and it was 20 below.
Woo, good Lord.
No, I'm good.
What's the wind? Was it windy?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Golly.
I mean, I had
He
to
said
walk
even
to class.
his memories are numb.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. It was. That's the coldest I've ever been in.
That's
20
like
below.
some Christmas vacation when their eyes are frozen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dang, 20 below.
Yep.
Woo, man.
And it's crazy because I had a beard at the time as well, and so your breath freezes and makes icicles on your beard. Yeah, it's crazy.
That always kind of trips me out because I usually have my beard back out this time of year. And like if we got a bust ice or something for the animals, you go out there and my mustache and stuff will be frozen.
Yep. Yeah, 20 below, you can spit and it'll freeze before it hits the ground.
Really?
Yeah.
Close to it.
That is crazy.
Guys in Germany, when we would run in PT in the morning, your eyes would water because of the wind hitting them, and people would have frozen eyelashes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Well, if you don't want frozen eyelashes,
you know what to do.
Yeah.
Warm up by hitting that button.
You warm up. Hit that button, hit the like, hit
your
subscribe.
finger exercises.
Yeah, because when you get cold, your hands don't hardly want to work right.
You got to keep them moving.
Keep them moving.
That's right.
Comment, type us a nice long comment.
And then go on your phone and type in APPLE podcast. And then just tap that 5-star button. You don't have to write anything. You don't even have to write anything.
That's right.
Yep.
You just tap the 5-star, and we've been holding at 17 for a month now.
Yeah, that's so frustrating.
And we need and if you've already done it, then go grab your daughter's phone or your cousin's phone or something like that. Yeah, make
some stranger's phone at a restaurant.
Yeah, we're trying to get over that little hump there so we can get some momentum going.
Yeah,
so
we did get a pretty good bit of YouTube comments.
All right, let's hear it.
Good.
All right, so our friend Amber, she said, a dislocated thumb. Wow, what a martyr.
I know.
And then she says, I agree with Logan. This fella had to have been eating a magic mushroom. Aunt Ruby, she says, my first thought was maybe the child did have a vision. Well, why would he make it up and devote so much time to it? Then it just got ridiculous and became so self-serving.
Yep.
That swayed me from false religion to cult. What a sad, crazy ending to his life. You would think people would look at his total life of 39 years and realize something didn't add up.
39.
Yep.
Debbie Baskin says, cult. And then Rhonda says, I wonder how hard it is to sell somebody on a revelation you previously sold them on being incorrect. She says, this is pretty good. She said, my mother-in-law will see something on TikTok and instantly believe it. People's responses to Joseph Smith that that at the time is not all that far-fetched. Honestly, if you can get out of work yourself to death, if you can get... I'm sorry, Rhonda. Honestly, if you can get out of working yourself to death in the field, manual labor, no life-saving time, saving conveniences, I think I'd sleep under a tree on a hill and make stuff up too. Just saying.
Very true.
That's
very
funny.
true.
That is true though. How many times do people see something on Facebook or TikTok and it's immediately the truth?
Yep.
Oh yeah, and how many times do people sit under a tree and make stuff up so they don't have to work?
Yes.
Logan.
Did y'all? I know. Hey, did y'all see? Oh man, it was, I don't remember, maybe 2 years ago on TikTok, they started saying that farmers were being paid to destroy their crops.
Oh.
And
yeah.
so some of the big TikTok farmers started to have a little fun with this. And there you go.
I know.
Your chair's sinking
I know.
down.
It's starting to sink.
I'm going to get a new chair one of these days.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. It's going to ruin the vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some of the guys started putting up videos, and they would be in a lawnmower, like on a riding mower, and he would be like, he would actually mow down just a little bit of his beans, and he'd be like, yeah, man, the government is actually paying me extra because they said if you use a riding mower, it's better for the environment. So he said, I'm actually out here, I'm getting paid to mow down my beans right now. And I mean, dude, they would go viral because people were like, they're paying the farmers to lawn mow their stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I love the dummies.
Yes, the world is full of them.
I have so much fun with them.
Yes, we call it Middle Earth.
Middle
Earth.
Yes.
That's it. A lot of stuff going on down there in Middle Earth.
It is. Well, hey, you got something funny for us?
Oh, yeah, actually I do. It's a little bit of a little story. This old buffed out biker dude wanders into a bar, and he has about 7.5 sheets to the wind.
Yeah.
And so he goes up to the bar and he says, hey man, I'd like a beer. And behind the bar is this Amazon woman. Like she is, and she says, okay, what can I get you? And he just orders something. She brings it to him and he just hollers out and says, anybody want to hear a blonde joke? And she says, sir, you are in an all women's bar. And I happen to be the women's Olympic weightlifting champion. That woman over there is a blonde MMA champion. That woman over there is a blonde Secret Service, undercover. He says, do you still want to tell that blonde joke? He says, oh yeah, you're right. I don't want to have to explain it 5 times.
It's funny because it's true.
Oh man, that's good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
what are we talking about tonight?
We're going to go deep down in the weeds a little bit.
That's what I like to do.
Oh yeah, see, because we did like Scientology and Mormonism and Satanism, and they kind of ride that fine line between, maybe are they alternate religions or are they cults or, so, and we've kind of landed on, yeah, they're all cults, but they don't appear to be like a cult.
So we're going full blown cult.
We don't even have to ask the question.
Yeah, we've been on the isms too much. It's time to go to the Ians.
If somebody listens to this episode and they're like, I don't know, then you might need to go evaluate some things.
Yeah. So it's one of those like, blink 3 times if you need help.
Yes.
No, this is one of the more bizarre ones, and in these first 3 episodes of this series, we're kind of like, we can see how somebody could easily get sucked into something like this. Because you can get sucked into Scientology and, even Satanism, because they're going like, oh, no, we don't worship Satan. We worship power and individualism. It's like, no.
Yeah, we're nice guys.
Exactly. And you know, the Mormons, you know, they got this this good family values,
Yep.
and you know,
Yep.
Donnie and Marie and all that kind of stuff. And so you could say, okay, but this is almost like a I don't know, a little owner's manual on how to get sucked into something so bad that it's literally you know your mind's been, you know, scraped clean.
Yeah. It goes down as the longest standoff in American history.
Longest?
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to get all the way into that. But what we're talking about today is this wild thing called the Branch Davidians.
Yep.
And, you know, some of you will, you know, especially if you're, you know, 30 something and above, you'll kind of remember this whole big sort of dust up.
Yep.
1993 was the big event, the big
The
standoff.
wackos in Waco.
The wackos in Waco. That's exactly right. But there's a lot more under the surface than just some crazy people out in the desert in Texas causing trouble.
See, and that's where I was telling them I've watched several of the documentaries. I like really, Marcy and I both kind of nerded out into the Waco documentary, but I did it from a hating the government standpoint.
Right.
And I didn't ever get into what are these, I knew that they were out there, but I never actually got into what they believed.
Yeah.
The series doesn't delve into that because most people are watching that from the adversarial position.
Yeah, they're not concerned about the theology
No.
and all that kind of stuff.
Everything.
Yeah.
Most documentaries start from when the standoff started, or a
Yep.
couple weeks before it. But it is a much deeper rabbit hole.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so we're going to identify a few of the key players. Of course, the main character is David Koresh.
Yeah.
yeah.
Koresh. Do you remember how he got his name?
He changed it.
Yeah, but why? What does his name mean? Why did? See, this is wild.
Let me see if my AI bot had
I
it.
could just tell you right
Yeah,
now.
just tell me.
Koresh is the Hebrew spelling and pronunciation of Cyrus,
Yeah, the
Ah.
prophet
and Cyrus was supposed to be like another, a Messiah figure
That's
for the
right.
Jewish nation
That's
to
right.
let them return. And then, of course, the Messiah, the real Messiah, had to come from the line of David. So
David Koresh.
It's weird too because at one point somebody was interviewing him and they asked him about his name, and he said, "Have you ever heard the sound when a man dies?" It's like, no. He makes it crash. Yeah, so it's Cyrus, and it's also the sound a man makes when he dies. It's like, that is just weird.
Yeah.
How many men has he killed?
I don't think.
Do you want me to just lower my chair down?
No, I'm doing this.
I was
I'm
gonna say,
doing this.
if it's doing it now, it's
No.
gonna be doing it all
No,
episode.
because there comes a point now, and this may be the time where it just holds for the rest of the episode. And so
All right.
I might have just done the magic thing.
I was gonna say I can lower my chair.
No. Honestly, I keep it up high mainly so I can look down on my papers because you know I'm like that kid in the high chair.
Do you want a book? I'll get you some books to sit on.
I'm good. I'm good. But they don't make phone books anymore. So.
No.
But you know when your kid in the high chair,
Oh,
it
yeah.
kind of slides down, his chin's on the tray. That's kind of where I feel like
That's
I'm
how
like,
you feel. Yeah, you're-
yeah, exactly. So no, I'm just going to keep jacking it right back up again.
All
That's, you know, it's the way we roll around
It
here.
is. It is.
Yeah, even our chairs are rebellious.
That's
it.
right.
Exactly. So anyway, David Koresh became the leader of this movement, this community, and it was pretty radical and pretty out there. And for those of you who just the way that it goes is it all came to a head in 1993. There were charges, and there was a warrant to search and seize and all this stuff in this big compound in Waco, Texas, or near Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we stop, you know. But there's all kinds of questions as to, okay, so how did he gather, a few hundred followers, like dedicated followers? These people, like, there's a like that trailer that we watched for that's actually one of his talks, one of his sermons, if you will, and he's saying, you got your law degree from Harvard, was that enough? No, it wasn't enough. And then this guy, hey, you live down in California, you had was that enough? No. So these are people that are wealthy and they're moving.
Yeah, they're not like homeless people that had nothing better to do.
No, they
were
hear about
successful
this.
people.
Yes, exactly. And he recruited in Australia and Israel. He wanted to set up a compound in Israel.
Wow.
Yeah. And all over the UK, Europe, and he traveled to all these places. Obviously on other people's money. And there are still like they were interviewing one guy that's just like, yeah, I'll bet those branch Davidians in Australia were going, I'm glad we're out here in Australia right now. Because, so we wanted to kind of, just untangle the whole thing and figure out how in the world something like this happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, the roots of this whole big weird thing go back to 1929.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a guy named Victor Houteff. Victor Houteff joined the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, see, there's a lot of weird stuff starts with the Seventh-day Adventist
There it
Church. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that the Seventh-day Adventists are a cult.
Yeah, no, we covered them.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, you can go back to some of our past. I don't remember the number, but we did.
It's a ways back. Yeah, we did all the denominations, and Seventh-day Adventists were in there. They were the Millerites.
Yeah.
And Miller predicted.
They drink Miller.
It's exactly
Miller
right.
beer. Miller Lite.
Yeah, so
the Miller Lights.
Yeah, there you go.
He's stupid.
Miller actually predicted the end of the world and the second coming of Christ more than one time.
Been right every time.
Yeah. And at one of those times, he claimed that it actually happened and nobody knew.
That's what I was figuring.
Anyway, but Seventh-day Adventists are, I know many of them, and I consider them to be brothers and sisters.
Ben Carson, isn't he one?
I think you're right.
Yeah, I was thinking Ben Carson is.
But Victor Houteff joined the Seventh-day Adventist Church in 1919. But by the time it got to 1929, he was having serious issues with some of their teaching. Now, if you know anything about Seventh-day Adventists and the whole thing, they are very, very, very much obsessed with the Book of Revelation and the end times.
Yeah.
They have maps and charts, and they are down into it. And they consider themselves to have prophets that prophesy about the end times. They're just kind of all up in this stuff. And so anytime it gets into books of prophecy, even in the Old Testament, they're going to have a particular teaching about it, and usually it relates to current events that are happening these days and things like that. Well, he took issue with some chapters 54 through 66 of the book of Isaiah. He believed that the Seventh-day Adventist Church was God's remnant church, but it needed reform. And so he began to share his new perspectives in his new teaching in his Sabbath school class. And so people in his, it's kind of funny. His class grew. Like it was the largest Sabbath school class in their church.
The Sabbath
Everybody
school.
kind of got excited about his teaching. Yeah, it wasn't Sunday school.
They didn't do it on the Sunday.
No, they do it on Saturday.
That would be blasphemous.
So they asked to first off, they asked him to discontinue his teachings, probably because this Sunday school class was getting too large.
Yeah.
But then he said, "Well, why don't you just meet with me and I'll share them with you?" And then so they ended up having this big long process. At the end of the whole process, they pronounced it heresy, that it was not true. So they disfellowshipped him because he would not give up. There's all kinds of stuff in this article about his views on the 144,000 and the seals and all this stuff. We'll not go into that. Just suffice it to say, it's just as weird as the Seventh-day Adventists.
Do you think that goes unacknowledged today?
Yeah, probably.
People will probably teach some crazy stuff in Sunday school.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, just wait till you Wait till you're in charge sometime, Pat.
No.
And you gotta,
No.
you know,
I don't like being
You
in
got
charge.
to approve certain things.
No, I just like being able to ask questions.
Anyway, so he never wanted to start his own movement or anything like that, but he decided that there was no other way. He was not going to go back on his teachings, and he'd been disfellowshipped.
So he wasn't like, make money, make money, make money.
No, he was actually very sincere.
Yeah.
I mean, he was devout. He was
believed it,
sincere.
yeah.
He just believed it.
Yeah.
And so he started this movement, and they called it the Shepherd's Rod.
Okay.
All right.
The Shepherd's Rod. Yeah, and it comes from Micah 6 and Micah 7. This idea of the shepherd's rod, your rod and your staff, all that kind of stuff. And so they started publishing, the Shepherd's Rod periodical. And 1934, they put him through a formal hearing process, and they denounced him. And it's like
All right.
you're gonna make sure that.
So it was a nice big mess.
Well, yeah, he had kind of hurt feelings over the whole thing because he felt like his teachings were correct, and they, at the very least, could exist alongside the other teachings. But they're like, no. So, in 1934, he started this new organization, the Shepherd's Rod, and then he published the first newsletter called the Symbolic Code.
Okay.
And you can get copies of the Symbolic Code today. They're still making them. Yeah. And so in this issue in 1934, he says, being deprived of all denominational advantages such as sanitariums, health food factories, printing presses, etc., perhaps it may be necessary for a rural location for the establishment of a combined unit to assist in carrying the message to the church until the siege against it shall be successfully culminated in a glorious victory when the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. This is one thing these prophets do, is they lift a lot of verses and use them.
Repurpose.
Yeah. It's a little crazy. So anyway, what he's saying is we're going to buy some property and we're going to set up our own thing. Yeah. And so they officially changed their name. And they organized themselves, all that kind of stuff. Their first name was the General Association of Shepherd's Rod Seventh-day Adventists.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
That's
How
not
about that?
catchy.
No,
Yeah.
that is not.
So they decided they needed something a little better, and so they changed it in 1942 to Davidian Seventh-day Adventists.
Okay.
Yep. And this is what they were known as. And they went to Mount Carmel, Texas, which is right outside of Waco. And they purchased 189 acres. Yeah. And they called this the Mount Carmel Center after the place where Elijah called the Israelites back to worshiping God. They added 186 acres in 1937.
Dang, where'd they get the money?
I have no earthly idea.
Huh.
But, Seventh-day Adventists are generally fairly successful people. So I imagine if now you're going to rally
Lump
behind
it
the
all
cause.
together, yeah.
Mhm. So they had, a couple hundred people out there. And by the 1950s, they were at their full strength. I mean, they were making an impact. It says regular subscribers to the newsletters and the periodicals, students, and people who are devoted to it, they estimated at close to 100,000 worldwide.
Wow, dang.
Yeah. They did a lot of, missionary work and things like that.
Yeah.
But Victor Hutef unexpectedly dies at age 69.
Dang.
Yeah. It's so weird. We'll talk about that later. But these people are still alive and well.
Oh, from this?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, let's just go there now. Look at their website.
Wow.
The Davidian Seventh-day Advent Church.
Uh-huh.
It's not as cool as the Hebrew Israelites.
No, it's not.
It's not.
But they got like a live chat button on there.
Oh, you ought to talk to Gadsda.
Gadsda. Yeah.
He's a god.
Gadsda.
Yeah. And they say that it's in Mount Carmel, Waco, Texas, God's chosen location.
I see that. God's chosen
God
location.
bless Texas, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
God bless Texas.
But here's the funny thing about it is, if you go up into history, they have all kinds of historical documents that they've scanned, and you can actually view Victor Hutef's death certificate.
Really?
They've got it on their website.
That's their one of their historical
Yeah,
documents.
it was acute cardiac arrest.
Okay.
All
Had a
right.
heart attack. So now there's a power struggle. It takes some doing, but his wife Florence gets herself positioned to take the whole thing over.
Hey, progressive.
They are. I was going to say, you got a woman leading.
Yep, that's exactly right. Well, Seventh-day Adventists are generally okay with
Gotcha.
Good on
prophets,
them.
leadership, all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So here's where it kind of goes off the rails. Florence is a good woman. There's nothing wrong with her at all. But
Are you saying that it went off the rails when they put a woman in charge?
No,
After they did good, they went off the rails.
it wasn't a fact that there was a woman. It's what the woman did. She got out over her skis just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, Adam.
She
Heard this before.
Yeah. She published a prediction that the 42-month period told of in Revelation 11 would begin November 1955 and terminate on April 22nd, 1959. Now, she says that this comes from Victor, but
he was dead, so he can't have no...
Well, and he never wrote that down. So
Yeah.
maybe they talked about it over the breakfast table or something like that. So it never came true. And in the meantime, there was this member of the Shepherd's Rod community that was rising to prominence. His name is Benjamin Roden. And he began to claim that he had been receiving new revelations from God. And that he should be recognized as the new leader of the Davidians. So what happened was Florence decided that she sort of ran out of gas. She lost momentum with this whole failed prediction thing, all these different kinds of things, and so she ends up deciding to dissolve the whole organization.
Dang.
She sells the property. She kind of dissolves everything. And so this sort of it sort of set the stage for this Benjamin Roden to start his own thing. And so he gathered a whole bunch of followers, and they actually left the Mount Carmel complex there, started their own thing.
Okay.
And so they were a branch of the Davidians.
Well, look at that. The branch Davidians.
Respect for a logical name.
Yes.
There you go.
The
See?
branch Davidians. Why do people make doomsday like date predictions? Why would they do that? Because they gotta. I mean, do you think that some of these people honestly believe it? Like, because why would you do that? Like, if it doesn't come true.
I think that you sit in your little study and you make all these mathematical calculations, and you kind of get all these thoughts going around in your head, and you think that you can actually elevate yourself. And even if I imagine that even if you're not totally convinced that it's right, man, for those 5 years, you were on top of the world, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I've personally seen this. People have released books about the end of the world being in like 1988. And then they were wrong. And then they were just like, oh, we got something wrong. Released another book. And, and these were like bestsellers. But here's the thing is 100% of these people have been wrong.
Yeah.
So you rather have to be on a money grab or 100% truly believe that you have this revelation. And if it doesn't come true, you misinterpret it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I think a lot of it is a big ego trip because you are now the one that God downloaded this information to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if it doesn't come true, then you usually do a spin. You say, oh, I see where I went wrong. And so it's not this date, it's that date.
Yeah.
Or as in the case of Miller, it's like, oh, he came. You just missed it, man. It's so... there's always some sort of some sort of way to step around it or to figure it out. It's just a little bit crazy.
How come none of these people have been like, 2173 is when it's gonna happen?
I know.
Yeah, none of us now will be alive.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
go ahead and shoot far enough into the distance where you can be on top and your kids and grandkids, and then let them deal with it.
If I was going to do it, that's what I'd do.
Yeah.
I'd be like, in 2237. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Who's going to prove you wrong?
Well,
I'll be dead and gone. I don't care.
Who cares at that point?
I know. So in 1973, New Mount Carmel was sold to Benjamin, his wife Lois Roden, and their son George.
Oh, Georgie.
And they just went back to the name Mount Carmel. Now, in 1978, which is 5 years later, Benjamin dies. Same kind of scenario as
Acute
Florence.
heart attack?
I believe it was.
Dang.
Yeah, I know. It's very stressful starting these new religions.
I see that.
What? Is your job stressful, Peter?
No.
Come on.
No.
I check on Peter once a week. I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Christmas comes and you just go wild for a while,
Yeah.
and then you rest for about 3 days, and then it's Easter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 78, Lois becomes the next branch Davidian prophet. Okay. So all while this is going on, from 1929 to 1978, there's in the meantime, there's this kid born, and his name is Vernon Wayne Howell.
And he's significant.
He is very significant. Now, so Vernon Wayne Howell had a very, very, very difficult upbringing. He was born to parents that were not married. His mother was, I think, 16 when he was born.
I think she was 14.
You're right.
I think she was 14.
Right. 14 is kind of a consistent number in this sort of story. Yes, 14. And I think the dad was 20. I think that's right. Anyway, so dad is really never in the picture. Mom is having all sorts of manner of troubles.
Yeah.
She's got, she's not very
She's
old.
a child.
Yeah, exactly. And she doesn't have a support system. And so she ends up putting the child with her sister and her mother. And it's really wild because the sister pretends to be
Mama.
his mother. And so he grows to be about 5 years of age. And mom finally gets her act together. Now she wants to be a part of her son's life. So she comes back, and they gotta retell this whole story.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I'm your real mom. And the kid's 5.
Yeah, everything you knew was wrong.
Yeah. That's
Right.
actually your sister. Your mother, your sister
aunt.
is your mother.
Yeah. My sister is not your mother anymore. I'm
your
your
aunt.
mother.
Yeah.
That's your aunt. That's your grandma. It's
Yes,
like
that's
crazy.
right. Yeah.
And you got a stutter. So let's figure this out.
See, and this is the other problem. He had terrible eyesight, and he had a speech impediment, which turned into really a pretty significant learning disability.
God can use them all.
It's true. That is exactly true. Yes, he was the stuttering prophet. Anyway, so he had a terrible, terrible time in school. He was put in, back in the day, back in the 70s, it was like you were put in special ed, right?
Yep.
It was like, learning disabilities you didn't know much about them. You were just stupid. You were just, slow.
And this was a humiliation to him. The kids at school made fun of him.
All the time.
So no matter what, his only sanctuary was with his family.
Well, and this is the way. Well, he had 2 nicknames at school. One was Vernie, which he absolutely hated.
So he's Vernie.
Yeah.
And the other was Retardo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pleasant upbringing.
Yeah.
Pleasant
exactly.
childhood.
And not a stable home. There was an interview, and he told a story of his childhood when he had a birthday party, and they had kids over, and he said, "My mother beat me black and blue in front of everybody."
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see where, But the weird thing about it is, he's got a photographic memory. He actually is very intelligent, and he somehow begins to read and becomes infatuated with the Bible. I mean,
Would he have been autistic?
I think was on the spectrum to some degree.
Yeah.
And
For
it's
sure.
funny too, is because at that young age, to overcome his speech impediment, he was listening to preachers on the radio.
Absolutely.
So that's why he talks like a preacher.
Yes. Exactly.
It was ingrained in him.
Yeah.
And so this is how he overcomes his speech impediment. So in his eyes, especially at a young, fragile age, going through everything he's went through at this point, God healed him.
Yeah.
Right. And he attends a Southern Baptist church and gets saved in this church, in his own words. That's where I got saved. He now by this time he is, he's probably 12, 13 years old. He's memorized large portions of the Bible.
Yeah.
Like he can quote it to you, and so he like impresses all the preachers and everybody. He just can pull it out of thin air. But he's also interpreting the Bible. Mm-hmm. He's got it in his head that the Bible needs to be interpreted. Mm-hmm. And so he's reading these things and he's thinking about them in 5 different ways. Mm-hmm. So now he's got his own kinds of interpretations and biases. And so he's in this Southern Baptist church and he's sharing this stuff with the preacher, and the preacher's going, I know something doesn't, I
kind of raising a flag.
Vernie theology.
Yeah, my seminary professors never really, And so Vernon gets agitated, and he leaves. Now his mother, but in the meantime, is found a Seventh-day Adventist church, and she's kind of plugged in there, so he gravitates there. Mm-hmm. And honestly, many of his interpretations are a little more palatable to the Seventh-day Adventist crowd. And so he's going to this church, and this is where he feels like God first spoke to him. Mm-hmm. And he said he was reading his Bible one day, and almost like a Joseph Smith experience, but he said God spoke to me in my heart. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like an audible thing. It wasn't like Moroni or anything like that. He just got this huge impression in his heart, and he's like, God said, I've got a purpose for you. I'm going to use you. Mm-hmm. So now he's special. So now all of his interpretations are obviously clearly from God. And so he's right with all this stuff. And then he starts hearing from God on a more regular basis. Mm. So he hears from God that his pastor's 12-year-old daughter is going to be his wife.
That's an interesting thing for God to tell him.
Yeah.
Because how old would David be at this point?
I missed one part. And the one part was when he got to be a junior in high school, he was doing better in school, but he dropped out anyway.
Yep, to be a carpenter.
Yeah. And it was shortly after that, he would have been 19 at the time.
Yeah.
When he said, your daughter's going to be my wife. And
not an age compatibility there.
Well, I mean... The preacher didn't take too kindly to that. So the preacher banished him.
Yeah.
It's and apparently, it's said in one of the articles that I read that the elders had kind of up to here with his sort of sexual fixation. So this was not the only.
I was going to mention earlier, as we're talking about a cult, that sex is involved.
Yeah.
It always is.
And this guy might be the king of it.
He really might be. He'd be the Mac Daddy of cults.
Yeah.
He's up there.
Yeah. Pretty close. Pretty close.
He's up there.
Yeah.
Just when you think it can't get any weirder, it does. So I don't want to say that it's the epitome, but, could be. But, I mean, there's some strange interpretations of Scripture, no, I'm not even going to go there. I'll tell you guys off air. I don't think I can say that.
It's rough.
I got to make a note because now I'm intrigued. I'll make a note to remind you off air.
Anyway, but so what happens here is he's still he's kind of on the fringes. Mm-hmm. He's still he's 19, 20 years old. He's still kind of hanging out with some high school people. He's in the in-between.
Yeah.
And he meets this, he sees this girl walking on the side of the road, offers her a ride. They get to her house. She invites him in.
Uh-oh.
And, one thing leads to another.
Mm-hmm. And now he's the Messiah.
He's the daddy.
Let's just say a story needed to be, and a virgin will conceive. Yes. Only that's not the way that it really went.
Yeah.
She's pregnant, and her dad finds out about it, and Vernon wants to marry her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants to make it all right.
And the age difference here is 6 years?
Yeah.
How old was
5
she?
or 6 years. She...
14?
I'm wanting to say.
I think it was 14.
So he likes them young.
Yeah.
Apparently.
I mean,
even later on, he does. Yes.
But he's 20 here, and so the dad at this point is like, "What?"
No,
yeah.
No. Yeah, and so they disappear, and this is fairly devastating to him. I mean, he takes it hard, and so now he's all kind of. up in his feelings and everything. It's so he's wanting to kind of do a fresh start kind of thing. Doesn't really know what to do, and so he hears about this religious community near Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
Called the Branch Davidians, and now he is intrigued.
Yep, in 1980.
Yep, it was 81.
81.
So that's at first glance, I thought that was like the star with a sperm tail. So it could almost be.
I thought it was a fish at first. And I thought, what's a fish doing in there? You know, and then I had to kind of put it all together. Yeah. So he shows up and he meets Lois Roden, who is right around 70 years old now.
60.
Nice.
Yeah. And so he wants to learn to study biblical prophecy under Lois. He does. And he kind of forms this relationship with her. And
So he likes them really young, or he likes
really
them
old. Yeah.
And everything in between.
And he tells her that God has revealed to him that they are going to have a child. And this will be the chosen one.
At 70 years old?
Yeah, just like Abraham and Sarah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, all this stuff is turning
So
around.
he doesn't understand something like biology?
Well, neither did Abraham and Sarah, apparently.
Well, I mean, he dropped out in junior year. I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
But, this is the thing is she is very impressed with his knowledge of Scripture and the ability to quote. And now he's romantically interested in her. They're having this, fling and everything
He's
like
20
that.
something.
25.
I'm not sure how she justifies having a, out of wedlock affair with a young man like this, but I guess,
Yeah, that'd be a tough one to try to sell, I feel like.
I mean, Benjamin's been gone a while,
I was
so,
going to say, you got grandma, and then there's 25-year-old. Because, I mean, let's be real. Dave Koresh was handsome. He was charismatic. He was, in good shape. Like, they said he looked like a rock star.
And
He had a mullet.
He could play guitar and sing well.
Yeah.
His songs were crap.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean,
for sure.
really bad songs. But he wrote his own songs and he played guitar and sang. And so she originally started allowing him or encouraging him to lead worship. And so they would, sing some of the songs that he wrote, and then, they'd sing some other worship songs.
So all this could have been remedied if John Belushi would have been around.
Why is that?
In Animal House. Did you ever see that movie?
Yes, I did.
You remember the dude busts out the guitar and he starts playing, and John Belushi comes walking up and he's like, listen, and then he just grabs the guitar and smashes it.
Man, I'm going to tell you a joke I heard a long time ago. It said, no matter who's in the bar, whoever's holding the guitar is the hottest.
Yeah.
It's about right.
David Koresh knew that.
He did. Except instead of the bar, he went to the Branch Davidians.
Yes.
He said, let's go over here and Mount Carmel, and we'll see what's what.
Got us a cougar over there.
Yeah.
Have you seen a picture of Lois?
No.
It ain't no cougar.
She ain't a cougar?
No. It's like an old Siamese
My
cat.
curiosity's getting the best of me.
Yeah, you probably need to look that one up.
Lois Roden. Roden.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this then is she then encourages him to preach and to speak and to lead some of these studies, these prophetic studies.
So he starts leading small groups, don't he?
Yeah. And then
nights and
pretty
stuff.
soon he's preaching to the whole assembly.
Wow, that's our...
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah. Is that what you call a cougar?
That is not what I was expecting. Good Lord.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
He's going, hey, honey.
Wow.
Do fries go with that shit?
Oh, yeah, because there was David.
Yep. That's,
That got me.
it.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Woo.
I'm really having.
Look at that, man. Look at that.
I know. Oh, I cannot bring myself to be that rebellious.
I'm stifling myself as we speak.
I'm having a massive filter right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he becomes very popular in the compound.
Yeah.
And pretty soon people start just gravitating toward him. And he's gotten a little following, and he's gotten a little power. And now God is speaking to him even more frequently. Imagine that.
That's funny how that works.
And I don't mean this in a mean way. I mean it strictly as a social way. He's basically the Stephen Furtick of the place.
Oh yeah, I mean he's the magnet, draws everybody.
Yeah, and I don't mean that disrespectful towards Stephen Furtick. I just mean socially.
And he's definitely doing some narcissism in this. But anyway, so he has this revelation, and he says, God told me that I need to take a wife from the community.
Oh, that was the New Light, right?
Yep.
The New Light revelation.
Yeah, this was the beginning of the series of New Light revelations. This is a whole theme that goes forward.
Regardless if they're married or not.
Well, and guess who he chooses first? A 14-year-old girl.
Well, he's like, man, I've had this 70-year-old. I'm ready to go back.
He finally got what he was looking for, right? Yeah, exactly. So
it's like I paid my dues.
Yes.
yeah. And I cannot.
What did Lois think
remember.
about this?
She did not like this.
Well,
She's losing her young steed.
And also, he had got Lois pregnant.
She actually could get pregnant.
But she had a miscarriage.
I figured she had gone through the change
I didn't
at
hear
70
about
years
that.
old.
Yep.
It would have been a miracle.
That would have been a miracle.
Yeah. I did not hear that part. But anyway, but I do know that he and his new 14-year-old wife had two children, Cyrus and Star. So I do know that.
Cyrus and Star.
Okay, so what happened then was Lois's son George now gets involved.
Yeah.
George
does not like Bernie.
And he is an idiot.
Yes.
Yeah.
George.
Yeah. Well, I mean, spoiler alert, he got locked up for the criminally insane.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now this is right at the time when Vern changes his name.
Yeah.
To David Koresh.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sound that a dead man makes.
Koresh.
Yeah. So obviously Lois feels jilted. George now is not having much to do with David.
He's like, you better come back to my mother.
Plus, George is supposed to take this over when his mother steps down, and now he definitely sees a there's competition there.
And Lois had proclaimed David as the last and the new prophet.
Oh, okay.
Right. Until he dumped her for a 14-year-old
and so
girl.
you got to think, like, this is a big slap in the face to George.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens here is a lot of tension involved. And so it ends up that George and some of his people run David and his following off of the compound at gunpoint.
Wow.
Yeah.
They go to Palestine, Texas.
Those Palestinians.
And they live out there in a community in literally they're camping.
Yep.
They're in tents and
Roughing it.
they pitched their tents and they lived in school
They didn't
buses.
do any pinching.
They didn't pinch anything. They pitched their tents. And there was no running water. There was no electricity. There was no nothing.
Just join a regular church, guys.
I
We
know,
talk
it's like,
about
come on,
community
man.
here. Lord have
I know.
mercy.
And so anyway, they live out there for quite some time like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and David gives these inspirational speeches about hey, how can we what compels us to live out here like this, and it's truth, it's all truth,
Yeah.
And he gets it right at this point. He's getting more fiery, and he's very very like Driscoll on steroids.
Yeah.
He's yelling at him.
It's the
He's
testing we have to go through to get to where we need to go.
And he's like, and I mean, there's like, if you don't believe the truth, you're going to the Lord's hell.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, wow, okay, all right.
Yeah.
And they buy it.
Yeah.
Do these people still have jobs?
Yes.
Like they go to work?
Some of them do, some of them don't.
Everybody except him.
Yeah.
Definitely not him.
Yeah.
And so what happens then is the Mount Carmel complex. Lois dies. Now George is in charge. It's a very small group out there now, and George is going to try to make sure that these David Koresh people never come back. So he tries to actually get the law on them. He'll sending legal orders and accusations and all these different kinds of things. So at one point, George digs up a dead body.
Yep.
So one of the Branch Davidians that died like a decade earlier, and he sets it out on some slab, and he challenges David, if you're the real Messiah, come and raise this person back to life.
David called the police.
He did, because David can't bring anybody back to life, and so he said, hey, police, you're my friends now.
He's desecrating the body.
Yeah, he's digging up dead bodies over there. And then he said, oh, no, I wasn't doing that. I was just moving the cemetery.
Oh.
Yeah. So this guy is not, he's not.
He's not there.
Not the sharpest.
Yeah. And so anyway, at one point, somebody, a man comes on the property, and George is there. And the man asks him some leading questions about theology and some prophecies and some things like that. And
David sent you.
George shoots him, kills him. Yeah.
Dang.
So now he gets arrested for murder. And instead of getting sent to prison, he gets sent to the
loony bin.
The sanatorium.
It's considered a mistrial by reason of insanity.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So,
So it's wide open for David now.
Yeah, because now there's a tax default. And that's and so David's people raise the money, pay the taxes, take possession.
So that's how they get the compound.
And they're right back to Mount Carmel where they started.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it says here, there's just a funny story in here. He tries to,
Yeah, at age 30, he becomes the technical leader of the Branch Davidians.
Anyway, David Koresh and a few of his people got arrested, taken to trial. It was declared a mistrial, and David took them all out for ice cream. So I thought that was funny. So, and I thought it was also funny because, so if you go to the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church website, and like I said, you find all these historical documents and everything else like this. This is just one of the historical documents. This is the famous letter that split the branch off of the original.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the
you
Branch
can say
Davidians or from
the original Davidians.
Okay.
Yeah. This was written by Benjamin Roden.
Okay.
And so it goes through all of this stuff about. So if you get really bored one day, you just go and read the letters. It's pretty awesome. Okay.
That's.com.
So now we're all up to speed. This is how we got here, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So now this is like
Stage is set.
late 80s, right? And David he's now settled in his new complex. He's got all of his followers. He's got complete control. I mean, like ironclad control. So now he starts. He really starts with these revelations and all of this preaching, and this is the strangest thing, because he actually wanted to. He didn't want the Branch Davidian name,
Right.
but they had to keep it in order to keep the property. He wanted to call them People of the Seven Seals, and
I remember that.
he is absolutely obsessed with the Seven Seals.
And he alone has the key.
This is where it starts getting really weird, because at first he doesn't come right out and say that he is the Messiah.
Right.
He'll call himself the sinning prophet. He'll eventually start to call himself another Messiah, but you can. There's a couple of video clips that you can see where he says he's preaching and he's like, those seals need to be opened. Those seals need to be interpreted. There's nobody that can interpret the seals, but I can interpret the seals because I've had this revelation. He says, so who can interpret the seals? It's the Lamb. It's the Lamb of God. And so it's like,
So he's the Lamb of God.
It's exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's interviews with the Davidians that say he's the Lamb.
Yeah.
He's like, believe it.
These are people who went through the event we're about to describe. they miraculously escaped when 100 people didn't, and there's one guy, he will look you in the face and say, David Koresh is God.
Yep.
Another guy, well, I'll get to that in a minute, the aftermath, because these people are still around doing stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, by this time it's total mind control, to the point where he says, now God is telling me I have to have multiple wives. Mm-hmm. What do we always say about cults?
And he has to be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah, so it's going to be some nakedness.
I was going to say,
right?
they like to get naked in the cults.
Naked.
But he starts messing with people's minds quite a bit. There was one woman, she and her husband actually were kicked out, and then they sort of came to their senses. But she said, I knew something was off because we have very strict rules. You only eat when the community eats, and you only eat at particular times. But yet David was allowed to eat anytime he wanted to. Mm-hmm. And he would just always say, well, that God told me to do it this way. Mm-hmm. And nobody ever questioned it. Yeah.
Convenient.
And so now he's taking wives. They said it's possible he had 20.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is less than half of Joseph Smith. So I don't know, I mean, I guess given time.
Yeah.
He might would have got there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at one point he decides, he issues an order that he's dividing the complex. And the women are going to live on one side and the men will live on the other.
Yep.
And he said, I declare all marriages to be dissolved.
Yep.
And so I have access to all the women whenever I need to. Because I have to have 24 children. Because in the book of Revelation, right around the time when the seals are going to be open, there are 24 elders seated around the throne, and God revealed to him that his 24, Messiah children are going to be the ones ruling in heaven in the last days.
And only his seed can produce
Exactly.
it.
That's exactly right. And so all the marriages are dissolved, and basically he would just, kind of make an arbitrary tap you on the shoulder. You're going to be my wife now.
Duck goose.
Yeah, that's it.
See, and that's what this just shows how these people believe this, because they believed it to the point where they let their marriage be dissolved in their mind, and they would let their wives go and sleep with this dude and all this.
There were several men that left, but the women stayed because they were chosen by God.
Yep.
But there was men that left because they're like, you can't take my wife.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I can. And then they were put out.
Just did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know. And once again, it starts with something that is weird, but in good faith.
Yeah.
The Davidian Seventh-day Adventists and the Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventists really were sincere in, and they apparently up until Lois tried to practice holy living.
Yep.
And
Prophecy.
they had Seventh-day Adventists are really into health food and health and all that kind of stuff. And then it just it just starts to go.
Yeah.
But you reel them in one little bit at a time until literally their brains are just rewired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if
rewired.
If from day one, old David would have been like, "Come on, join me. Your marriages are gone.
Yep.
I get the women."
Yep.
Nobody would have gone with it.
Who wants to live on one side of the compound while I, have my way with all the women?
And some of these wives were teenagers.
Yeah.
Oh, many of them, and this is what kind of starts the ball rolling, as far as the authorities getting involved, because they're hearing rumors that there are underage girls that are becoming married
Yeah,
to
they were
some
saying
guy.
it could be as young as 12.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so there you go. I guess if you're the other Messiah, then I don't know.
But Department of Children's Services came and they found no evidence.
See, and here's the problem. And listen to this whole interview with one of the guys that was in law enforcement, very high up at the time, and he said, here's the problem. In order to press a charge or make a charge even, or do an investigation even, you got to have a complaint.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so, just
Circle
taken
the
by this
wagons,
thing. Yeah. And they kept asking them, "Are you being held here against your will?" No.
Yeah.
I paid my own money to get here. I came from South Dakota, or I came from upstate New York.
I'd give my life to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this guy, one of the guys, Steve Thibodeau is his name. He was a musician out in California, and just like no meaning or purpose or direction to his life. He hears about this thing. He moves all the way to Texas, and like he's in, he's all the way in. And he to this day will say, I've never heard anybody preach like David Koresh.
I saw that interview. I've never heard anyone give the word the way he's given the word.
Yeah. And that's and he would even say, well, I don't know if he's guilty of polygamy or statutory rape. He's probably guilty of both.
Yeah.
I mean, but yet, he
gives the word.
I know, and he's still all in on this guy.
Where is Cyrus and Star?
Well, they don't make it out.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Couldn't remember who all.
Yeah.
So he has no. Well, does he have any children around?
It's unknown. It's unknown if any of the children made it out where it is.
Yeah.
We'll get to that when we get into the siege, which we're getting into right now.
Gotcha.
Because the other red flag for the local authorities is they begin this this gun trading business. Mm-hmm. They go to the gun shows, they get the guns, they repurpose them, they sell them, and of course they're just stockpiling in the meantime.
Yeah.
But here's where they get their first, I don't know, I guess red light by this time.
Is this the UPS package?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because they're selling these doomsday prep survival kits as well. And one of the items they sell is this survival vest, and it has all these pockets in it and everything. And they're outfitting it with these dummy grenades. And so this UPS driver, and he pulls out this box, and it's like, the heck is this, And so he alerts the authorities. They got grenades going on out here. And so that's when they started digging in, and they sent some undercover people in, did these other kinds of things. They discovered that, among other things, they are repurposing semi-automatics to fully automatics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're actually manufacturing machine guns on site, on property.
And this was the early 90s. It was over $200,000 worth of firearms and munitions.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a lot. Now, that'd be a lot. I don't even know what.
And this is in the early 90s now.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So, all of this evidence started to accumulate. And then, of course, you got the whole, child bride kind of situation going on. They can't, it's like, it's like Al Capone, they need to get him for something.
They got him. He needed to tax evade so they could get him.
Well, this is where the ATF gets involved.
That's it. That the ATF gets involved, and it's interesting because the ATF is going to get involved, and the FBI is going to get involved. I watched multiple interviews with both of them, and both of them will say we failed.
Yeah,
we did the wrong thing, and both of them at one point or another tear up over this whole thing.
Yeah,
that's the documentary with Taylor Kish. That's who it plays, David Koresh. It was really well done because I was telling them about a podcast to listen to, a series on this and Ruby Ridge, because their paths cross. But man, this documentary with Taylor, it shows you get the FBI agent. He's actually what's the guy that talks to him, try to get him to come out?
Oh yeah, the hostage negotiator.
Yeah, the negotiator. They go into him pretty deeply on this, and he was great, like in the show. But yeah, I mean, he tells his character is like, we failed.
Yeah. Well, that's what the FBI had said, is that they had him under surveillance, and they saw him at the hardware store earlier.
Yeah.
And they should have grabbed him at the hardware store.
Yes, absolutely.
Instead of following him all the way back. Like they admitted this.
Yeah.
But they had this warrant, a search warrant and seizure warrant, the ATF did. And this is a huge complex. Mm-hmm. You don't exactly know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we need to go in with more firepower than we need.
Yeah.
We need to scare these people. We need to intimidate them. And so their initial plan, this was February 28th, 1993. And their initial plan was to execute this on a Saturday. So this is church day for them. Because their routine they'd been observing is that they would have their worship services, and then all the men would come outside to do their work. And so they thought, okay, we're going to get them right after worship, and all the guys are going to be out on the compound, and we'll get them separated so we can keep the women and the children safe, and then we can deal with the guys. And then we'll just overpower. They had tanks there, they had helicopters there, and everything, and tons of weaponry, tons of everything. And here's okay, so one of the guys that's going to participate in this whole thing gets lost. And so he stops and asks a mailman for directions. The mailman is a Branch Davidian. And so he immediately runs back.
Tells David, they're coming.
And so they finish their worship service and nobody goes outside. And so now ATF is like, what the heck?
Yeah.
You think
they
that
do
guy
this
still,
every week.
You think that guy still has got his job?
Oh,
that ask for directions.
Yeah, I got lost, boss.
Hey, man, we're headed to infiltrate these Branch Davidians.
Exactly. I wonder if he had like his camo, his desert camo.
Yeah, he's like, hey, we got... He's got his like his M60 slung over his back.
He's grabbing a Humvee.
Rambo didn't have GPS.
I heard about
there's some kooks out here.
No, I'm on a spiritual journey.
Yes,
I heard there was a religious community out here.
Oh well, it might would have been like, right on, man. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, right.
I bet that guy lost his job.
Oh man.
Yeah.
He probably did. But anyway, the director of the ATF who was interviewed said right then and right there, he said, I was not there. I was the one who signed the papers and gave the orders. Had I been there, I would have said abort right now. Get out right now. Yeah. Because something's wrong. They're not in their routine, and we don't know what these people are like.
Yeah.
And, they... And he goes on to say, we discovered very quickly that these are people that are completely sold out. They are not coming out. They are not going to be scared. And the whole time, of course, David KORESH, he had established this culture up to this point. He said, we are going to be ready to fight.
Yeah,
we are warriors. Yep. We are soldiers, and we just hammer it into them. And then when they got into the gun business, it's like, because we're going to have to use these someday.
Oh yeah. He had been preparing them.
And so here they are. Now they're like, well, game on.
Right. He was right. It's time to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so they are not cooperating in the least bit.
Yeah. And they try to execute a warrant. And there's some shots fired. No one knows what side shot first.
And I mean, both sides accuse the other of shooting. The ATF guys just say there were bullets coming from everywhere. And the people that got out, there were actually a total of 11 men that got out, besides the children that were evacuated up until then. But of course, they'll say, we were just sitting there. And these bullets kept coming through the walls and the windows and everything. But they had a little bit of footage that they showed, and it was, ATF guy trying to go through a window, and he's instantly shot and killed. So when it got to that point, then they had to bring the FBI in because now it was not an ATF simple raid anymore.
Yeah.
Now we've got a standoff. And that's when they brought in the hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because he's retired now, and he was talking and he said, I got called in the middle of the night. My director said, you need to get down to Waco right now. We've got a bad situation going on. And so he said, I got up and I asked my wife to throw some clothes in a suitcase while I took a shower. And I said, you know what? This sounds like it might be serious. It might be a long one. You better put 3 suits of clothes in there.
51 days later.
Oh my gosh. Well, and it was really kind of fascinating how honestly how this thing unraveled.
Oh man, yeah, like we said, it was they were nuts in there, but it was definitely some some really foul and poor tactic use on the government side, like the psyops we talk about.
I don't care which way you look at it; it's failure all the way around.
Yeah, the psyops element of it. Yeah, they would play. They brought in like those huge. They had huge speakers, and at night, they'd play these massive speakers, be blasting, like horrible sounds.
Yeah,
like you say, chickens
dying,
and all these awful sounds all night long. So, and then and it's a psychological.
But see, here's the thing: if you have already been psychologically manipulated to the point,
that ain't gonna do nothing to you.
Like you can't mess me up any worse,
Yep, they're using Satan tactics.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean the kids and everybody's like totally on board.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, well this is what David said was going to happen, and now it's happening. And that's what this Steve Thibodeau guy said too. He said, hey, we just thought, okay.
This is what we're doing.
He is a true prophet because here we are. You know? And so they weren't. That was the thing, is they were not afraid of the ATF or the FBI or the National Guard or the Army or anybody. They were afraid of God.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's the bottom line.
And that when I first started researching this, and when I first heard of it years ago, I say first heard of it, when I first started looking into it years ago, I was thinking this is like basic training. When you graduate basic training, you bleed red, white, and blue. You are gung ho, hua hua, the whole nine.
Yeah.
And these people were there for years.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't like a few months basic training or anything like this. Is years.
Yeah, well, by this time the core group had been there for 10 years.
Yeah.
They've been a couple of years, 3 years maybe out in Palestine. So they've been through the worst of the worst, and now they're back at the Mount Carmel complex.
This is life,
and they've been there another 6 years or so, and I mean. And they've been preached to every single day.
And they said some of his preachings would go for 12 hours.
Whew, man.
And would get so mad if you fell asleep or needed to get up and go to the bathroom or anything like that. He wanted undivided attention.
Yes, demanded undivided attention.
Try that one Sunday.
That won't work for me. I got to get up and pee.
I can't get undivided attention for 40 minutes. But he was a very good communicator.
Yeah.
Very, emotionally manipulative. And, was basically preying upon all of these, 20, 30 somethings who just desperately wanted meaning and purpose in their life. And just, setting himself up to be, I'm the one who knows it. I'm the chosen one. I am, everything just extremely self-centric. And, so anyway, there they are, holed up inside of there. The FBI comes in, and honestly, I heard some of the phone conversations. Did you hear any of those?
Yeah.
They played some on one of the documentaries.
And they were being nice to him. I mean, it was, And so in the initial stages, probably in the first, 10 days, they were able to get between 30 and 40 children, a few adult women out of there.
Yeah.
And so they think, okay, we're fine. We're going to be fine.
Yep.
And then every time they turn around, it takes a weird turn. They've been going at it a month, doing all these things, all the tactics, all the stuff. And they're talking with David Koresh, and he says, okay, I'm coming out. I'm coming out. I'm going to get my stuff together, whatever. And so tomorrow at such and such time, I'll come out.
Yep.
And an hour before that time, he calls them and says, I just got a message from God.
He said, wait.
And they're back to square one.
Yep.
They are back to freaking square one.
Yep.
And they got to start this whole thing all over again.
At one point, he said, if you broadcast me.
Yeah, that was stage
people.
2. That's exactly right. He wanted an hour-long sermon broadcast on a major Christian radio outlet. Which they did. And it was this was a funny thing too, because this Steve Thibodeau guy, literally kind of drinks the Kool-Aid, still. He says, I was so disappointed because that was not one of his better teachings. I mean, really, he says, I heard it and I thought, why did he release that one? There's others that are so much better. And once again, when you're in it and you're hearing it from the horse's mouth, it probably was one of his best ones.
Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
you're not right there, you know, like he got a glimpse of it from the outside.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, that's not very good. Well, it's never
Yeah.
been any good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've just been hoodwinked, bro.
Yeah, you've been victim of emotionalism this whole time.
Yeah.
And trying to, you know, gain favor from somebody that you are completely in awe of, you know, like you're making sure you're sitting correctly and you're wearing something correctly and you're following the rules and all this
Yep.
stuff so you can get favor from the big guy who's connected to the big guy.
Yep.
It's nuts. So that was phase 2. And phase 1, they thought they were getting somewhere. Phase 2, they thought, okay, we do this one thing and it doesn't even cost us anything. We'll just do it.
Yep.
Everybody's okay. And, you know, they had the Christian Broadcasting Network and whatever, and they set it up as, you know, y'all know what's going on. We got to play this thing.
Yeah.
So don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And it still didn't work. So they go on to phase 3. Now, by this time, you know, David Koresh is on the phone saying, yeah, you know, I'm getting tired of eating these canned rations, you know. And so, yeah, it's probably time to, you know, put an end to this thing. But he said, you know what? I need time to write down my teachings of the 7 seals.
Yep.
Okay. And he says, I'm going to need 2 days per seal. So obviously another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And one of the guys, the FBI negotiator says, well, but you know, he said, I really want to read them. I mean, I'm interested. I'm in. and he said, but didn't it take like 600 years to write all the original stuff down? Oh, I don't need that much time. No, I got 2 days per seal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Just give me 14
Yep.
days.
And it's like, okay. Well, they get to like day 4 and they receive some inside information that he hadn't written anything down.
Yeah.
Not one word. And so now everybody is just like at the breaking point.
Yeah.
It's like, screw this. This is day 51.
Yeah.
51. And so they give the tear gas call. And it was crazy because I've never seen anything like this before. I guess that's the way they do. They just ram the house with the tanks.
I guess. I mean, that's not what we did. But, I mean, yeah, they would ram it, and there was these hoses that would just dump in
Tear gas.
so much tear gas into this place.
And their strategy was that, you know, it's like this guy was describing. He said, you know, I've been in tear gas before numerous times. And he said, if I was a mother and I had a child, I would need to get my child out of there.
Yeah. They're going to smoke them out.
Yeah. And so he thought, okay, well, the women will grab their children and they'll come running out. Nobody came out.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're literally just, you know, like every angle, they're just jamming these tanks through the walls and pouring this tear gas in. That's when the fire started. And this is really where it went off the rails. And now,
in high winds.
yes. Yeah. And I guess that now a couple of the people who made it out said that during the time where they were doing like the loud noises and all this kind of stuff, he said like in the few days before they actually pulled the trigger on the tear gas, like the guys that were driving the trucks and the tanks and everything were like being really, I mean, they were like mooning them and you know, middle finger and you know,
Yeah.
you know,
Picking a fight.
not stuff they were supposed to be doing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Not professional.
So, you know, nothing says we want to resolve this peacefully like ramming a tank at the side of your building.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, I guess they just felt like they had no other options, that they were not going to try and, you know, wait another 51 days or something like that. And I saw some of the hearings. Janet Reno, if you remember her, she was in charge of this whole thing, and she got angry.
Yeah.
You know, and she said, you know, if we'd have waited them out and then they all committed mass suicide, you'd have said we should have gone in sooner. And then, you know, I go in now and you say, you know, it's like she was hot about the whole thing. But anyway, somehow a fire started and it escalated quickly. I mean, you can go and watch that that video footage.
The entire
Yeah.
complex.
I mean, it just went up. Now, initially, the first investigations, they attributed the fire to the tear gas because the tear gas was flammable. That doesn't necessarily account for how quickly and how violently it
Right.
went up. So I guess it was right around 2013 or something like this. They were finally able to take some of these bug recordings and decipher them. They couldn't at first, and there's like a very short conversation about spreading oil and accelerants and all these different kinds of things. Did you get the oil down? Did you get the fluid down? Did you all this stuff? So it was probably a team effort, honestly.
Yeah.
They probably thought, well, we got this plan all set up in place. We're gonna torch the place and run that way.
Yep.
But then the tear gas, basically, just made the
Didn't
whole
give
thing.
them no chance to do that running.
And okay, so a few days before this siege happened, it all blew up. They asked David Koresh to at least let all the children out, and he said, "No, these are my children. The other children can go out, but these are my children. They are chosen children, and they're not leaving here. Nobody's going to come in here and get my family from me."
And
Yeah.
he ended up putting them in the bunker.
Yep.
And the bunker collapsed and buried his wife and kids alive.
But here's the weird thing about it is because they went in after the fire got put out, and he and his right-hand man, Steve Schneider, their bodies were right next to each other, and they both had died of gunshot wounds to the head. Many of the children had died from gunshot wounds. So they don't know if they both committed suicide at the same time, or if one shot the other, then shot himself, or if
If they
somebody
went
else-
around shooting them.
Yeah. We don't know, but
And you can hear the audio. It's just a gunfire all over the place.
everywhere.
And you have no idea, because you can't see through walls.
Yeah.
And
Now in the show, I don't know if this was. I don't remember if this was accurate. Had he not been shot?
Yeah,
David Koresh?
shot in
Yeah,
the
he had
wrist
been
and in
shot.
the hip.
It was. You could see the wound in is like right above his hip, like in the
Yeah.
lower stomach area, and he refused any kind of medical attention, refused any kind of pain medicine.
Yep.
He treated the wound himself, and so it showed all. They gave him a video camera,
Yep.
Yeah.
and so he used it.
Yep.
And there was footage of him sitting there with a bullet hole in his
Bloody
side.
wife beater on.
Yeah.
And his children are gathered around him, and all this stuff. It's just absolutely creepy.
The man was fully
Yeah.
prepared to die there.
Well, and this is the
Yeah.
weird thing about it, because one of the guys that put together, it's one of the. I watched a lot of footage on this stuff, but this is a guy who is a cult expert. Can't remember his name right now, but he's talked with like up over 500 cult members, and he said he's been successful in getting 75% of them out of their cults.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like a thing. He's an expert.
That's a good percentage.
I know.
Yeah, that is.
But he talked a little bit at the end, and he said that the main fear for David Koresh was, like his worst nightmare was to be arrested and incarcerated because it took away his power.
Yeah.
His whole life revolved around being the head honcho,
Yep.
being the the one in control, being the one preaching, being the charismatic
Yep.
figure, all the followers, all just the absolute adoration and love that was shown to him on a daily basis. They would literally do whatever he asked them to do.
I think this is why we see a lot of people be willing to go down with the ship as opposed to let the ship sink and go do your time or go do whatever.
Right, oh, for sure.
Yep.
Because he couldn't imagine a life in which he was not in charge. Mm-hmm. And you see all the things that he was willing to do along the way. Have an affair with a 70-year-old woman. And, he would live out in a tent. And,
My hat's off to him because that's some lifting.
well, yeah, it is.
Man.
But, and when you're the one that is the God figure, you're on 24 hours a day. You're playing that part. And
Yeah.
you got to be one step ahead of your followers because you can't let anybody question you.
Oh, I just want to say he had to, he had to have convinced himself and believed it at this point.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can't, like him and Steve or somebody, they couldn't go out away from everybody and him be like, man.
Yeah, let's go play golf.
Yeah, man, I'm tired. I need a break from this today.
I know.
You know, like, because it would have got out.
Yep.
So, I mean, he had to literally so that's why I honestly think the guy lied to himself to the point that he believed it.
But you think about his history and his childhood and his, you can just see this pattern that would lead him to say, I am desperate for attention and for respect and to feel like I'm in control of something. His whole life, he's been completely out of control.
Yep.
And, not being able to read well, not being able to speak well, not having any kind of social skills at all.
Yep.
I mean, his first girlfriend, he picks up off the side of the road, I mean, it's just like, and yet he's got all these skills. He's a musician, he's a songwriter, he's a preacher, he has half the Bible memorized.
He's a talented dude.
I mean, he can lift a verse out of context with the best of them.
I was gonna say, like you said, his music. I've heard his songs, and they are hot garbage.
Oh, he's
like
terrible.
Duke can play. He could play, and he had a pretty decent voice.
Yes, he did.
But his songwriting was horrible.
It was all wrapped up in this weird. I mean, he tried to mix all this theology in here. None of it was like, I love Jesus, you know. It was all about, the seven mountains and the, it was like, whoa, okay. Whatever.
So what you're saying is he was no Larry Norman.
Honestly, he probably wanted to be Larry Norman. But he couldn't write a song about UFOs.
No.
It wasn't in his wheelhouse.
Or the ATFs.
No, Lord have mercy.
Profit my butt.
No.
So that was the end of it, but the weird part of it is there are still some. I mean, there's still some remnants of this around.
Yep.
You still have the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church, like I said, and they are actually apparently doing well. I mean, they got this picture on their website. If you go to their website, it's clean. It's clean. But then you go to
Gadsda, what is it?
Yeah, Gadsda.
Gadsda.com.
Yeah, but then they got these, these are the symbolic
What
codes.
is that?
This is their prophetic charts.
It's like a bingo chart.
Yeah, they put a new one out every year. And
Wow, those are weird looking.
I know. It goes through all the symbols, everything means something. Yeah. It's a little crazy. But then here's the wild thing though, is there is an actual Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventist church, and
really?
here is their website. Yeah.
Okay.
And now these people.
He looks like he would be one.
Yeah. The weird thing about the Davidians and the Branch Davidians, now obviously. Their obsession with prophecy, and especially in Revelation and Daniel, and they've got all of these timelines and charts and things worked out, and it's all figured out.
Yeah.
But the other weird thing is that they see the Holy Spirit as a woman.
Yeah.
Holy Spirit is female, and they say, well, because God's just a man, he can't create anything. Got to create something.
Got to have him a woman.
Exactly. Got to be old yin and a yang.
Yeah, because it works like fleshly ways.
Yeah. And so they do see the Holy Spirit as a female, and then there's also this thing. You can see it on here somewhere, but it's materialism. They're big into materialism. There is no supernatural.
How does that work?
Yeah. Let me see if I can find this particular, and it's
there you go. Scripture doctrine of materialism.
Materialism, yeah. It's weird because this guy Trent Wild is the head of it right now, and he's the young guy, like he's probably 30, 35 maybe.
Trent Wild.
And there's another guy, Doug Mitchell, I think is his name, who's involved, and they have podcasts and they write blog posts, and they're all into this thing.
So do they recognize David? Koresh on anything?
No. See, that's the funny thing about it is if you go to their frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
That's the first one they answer. And they say, it's so unfortunate that we have to answer this question first. They claim that David Koresh stole the name when he stole the complex.
Huh.
And that the remnant of the real Branch Davidians was still in existence. And so when he got taken down, they just moved back in. Not necessarily to the physical complex, but they moved into that religious space.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So now they're all
right,
there.
this guy Trent, the apple don't fall too far from the tree though. I found him on Facebook.
Really?
His wife is substantially older than him.
Oh wow. You're right.
All right. So Trent.
Wow.
Trent, they're in Ontario.
Okay.
Trent, let's see here. It doesn't have his stuff. All right, he married her in 2013. Wow, man. All right, Trent. How old do you think this dude is? I mean,
to me,
30s.
he looks like maybe 28.
Yeah, like he's got to be young. She graduated. I went to her page. I'm doing some creeping right here on the show.
Yeah.
Teresa Wild. I went to her page. She graduated from high school in 1991. So she's got to be.
Wow.
She's got to be 30 years older than him.
All right.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's got to be. I mean, look, I'm not trying to be mean, but she looks substantially older than him.
Lois? Is that you?
Yes. Saying, man, what's the deal with these Branch Davidians? They like them old or they like them young.
I just don't know.
He's like the opposite of Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused. He's like, I get older and they keep getting older. All right, you know. Wow, man.
Oh man, yeah.
That's funny.
It is wild, isn't it?
Yep.
Sad story.
Yeah, they live. Yeah, BDSDA.com is their website.
Well, Branch Davidian, Seventh-day Adventist.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go.
Dang, that's pretty crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I gotta click on this here. It says this article is called "God, a purely material person."
God is a material person.
It kind of interested me, you know. It says, yeah, Jesus is a purely material person. The place where he went must be material. It must be physical. And according to these texts, he went into heaven and sat at the right hand of God.
Do you know what translation of the Bible they use?
They make up their own.
NABT.
What?
Not a Bible translation. NABT. That's what they got on here.
Wow.
Because he's quoting like Proverbs 12:3. Pat or somebody, look up Proverbs 12:3. I'm curious what the difference is and what they got.
See that?
Because this like he's quoted Proverbs 12.
It says NABT right here.
NABT. It says not a Bible translation.
You say Proverbs 12:3?
Yeah.
A man will not be established by wickedness, but the root of righteousness will not be moved.
This says an earthling can't be sure in wrongdoing, but the root of right doers can't be shifted. That's just confusing.
They are correct. It's not a Bible translation.
Yeah, it's like, what in the world, man?
It's like, nah, I twisted it. Yeah, this it goes back to.
They're all about materialism.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is almost like flat Earth.
Yeah.
It really is.
Wow, it got weirder than I expected.
It just did right now.
Yeah.
I'm just learning as I'm sitting here right now. He says, Daniel 7, and I was watching until thrones were set up and an Ancient of Days sat, and his clothing was white as snow. The hair of his head is pure wool. His throne was flames of fire, and his wheels burning fire. I know that verse. Pat, you know that verse. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've heard it. Okay, so it says, quite plain, the deity is a real material person with a head, hair, clothing, etc. People often spiritualize these plain descriptions away by saying that God is just described like this to become more relatable to us. But this explanation is entirely an imposition onto the text. Clearly, it's material. Clearly.
Clearly.
Oh, my gosh. This is bogus.
Yeah.
So Branch Davidians.
Cult.
Without a doubt, cult. They're still going. Like, here's a dude to put up he got old Trent here. I looked on Instagram. Went to Sykeston. So I wonder if this is Sykeston. Now, this was back in 2017. So I wonder if they're like, did they have to leave the States or something?
Man, I don't know.
Because this guy said went to Sykeston last month to meet for the first time, Brother Trent Wild. The kingdom of God is bigger than your church and your congregation, folks.
Yeah, well, it is.
How do they? Hey, man, I mean, it's just wild how they.
It's exhausting.
It is. It's crazy that they get people. Crazy they get people into these things.
Well, I mean, everyone wants to belong to something.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. That's David Koresh modeled this after his own life. Rejection and not fitting in. So he created that space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he's certainly, and that's the whole thing, because obviously David Koresh, Vernon Howell,
Old Vernie,
is clearly disturbed.
Yes.
I mean, something's not quite right.
Yeah.
Right. So, Pat, if you got Vernie in therapy, where would you start? What would you diagnose him with?
Oh, childhood trauma. He's got to start there. That's my Liz, you should comment on this.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. I would think honestly, yes, childhood trauma, and this is just coming from a therapy background and dealing with trauma myself. That I feel like that he has projected this fantasy world onto a faith. I mean, granted, he took a very questionable faith, should we say?
Yeah.
And then made it his own, which is a branch of the Branch Davidians, which is a David Koresh branch. So the branch people say, I don't know, like I'm
and then the Branch
leaves.
Davidians say, we want nothing to do with David Koresh. We distance ourselves from him, and they're just as weird as he is.
They are.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
What is wrong with you people?
Well, when you have a faith based off Jesus and you use a not Bible translation Bible,
Man.
I mean,
But you can also see, it's like we talked about with Scientology and Mormonism, Satanism. These elements they come together and they kind of line up, and they create this environment. Because if David Koresh would have made this pilgrimage to United Methodist camp in 1983 or whatever, that would not have happened.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he would have come up with his weird interpretations, and they would have said, you know what, we love you, brother, but,
I mean, think about it this way. How far would it go, Peter? And let's say this Sunday you get up there, we're in the second week of Advent, and you're like, all right, we're going to do the second reading of Advent, so everyone open your Sears catalog.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
We're going to
That's
go
right.
to the lingerie section,
Yeah.
and we're going to quote the third paragraph. I mean, come on. Like, this is how far off it is.
Yeah, and the Lord told me I need another wife, and she's either got to be 70 or 14.
And wear this lingerie.
Yes. Man.
Yeah, the sacred underwear, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
Mormons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's like the Seventh-day Adventists of that time, in that weird strain of Seventh-day Adventists, not even the mainstream.
Yeah.
That weird strain. They were just off enough and just weird enough that his own interpretations just sort of slid
right in there. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm telling you guys, because I think today we're in a modern age of technology where anyone can fact check stuff online and all this kind of stuff. But I'm telling you now, I think where the next big cult is going to come up is going to be in the digital realm. How many YouTube theologians do we see that just totally get it wrong? And then today, people live on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. I mean, that's just the way of the world. That's how the world communicates now. And there's a lot of bad communication out there, but if it's online, people believe it.
Yep.
Yeah, that is true.
And so I'm telling you, I think that's where we're going to see the next big crazy movement is going to be in the digital realm that comes out into the real
Well, and
world.
we've seen it already. I mean, you can go down a lot of different trails once you get that algorithm cooking.
Yep.
If you, we're gonna get David Koresh videos fed to us now for the
Ruby
next 2
Ridge.
weeks.
Yes.
And and our phones are listening to us right now, so
Yeah.
we'll go home and we'll find this stuff.
Oh, my YouTube algorithm is jacked.
Oh,
It's jacked.
It's nuts.
I'm going to have to make a
Completely
fake
nuts.
email account to open a new one.
Yeah, and like I use my wife's because she's got the Pro with no ads.
Yep.
And so
poor Miss Karen.
I know. And so you come up on the homepage and it's like, weird cults and crocheting
Yes.
all on the same thing.
Yes, you got a
I can hear Miss Karen
smorgasbord.
now. Peter.
I know. It's like, who is this Michael Heiser dude?
Your best friend.
He is my best friend. I'm going through his study on Exodus right now.
Okay.
Absolutely phenomenal. Fantastic. I mean, there's stuff you'd never get in a million years.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. We spent 4-hour plus long episodes on chapter 3.
Good Lord.
Jeez.
Dang.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So what's your opinion on the Kenite hypothesis?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I learned about.
I've never heard of such.
I haven't either.
I didn't either until I listened to it. It was fascinating and eye-opening, very much eye-opening. For instance, do you remember where Moses went after he killed the Egyptian guy? I know. We just
Hermon?
Midian.
Midian. That's right. That's where he got his wife.
And he worked. He tended sheep for the high priest of Midian. When Joseph was sold into slavery, who was he sold to?
Was it Midianites?
Yeah.
All
Midianite
right.
tradespeople.
Okay.
I know. Also known as the Kenites.
Well.
Now, see, this is already way more interesting than Dave Koresh.
I know. It's like, yeah. Now, when you listen to my interpretation of the Kenite hypothesis, but see, that's the thing. That's my biggest question. Is it obviously, clearly, he did not study his Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you cannot. I'm worried about some of these fringe prophecy groups too, because if you study your Bible, you're not gonna pull out the zeal of the Lord will accomplish this, and then just put it whatever you want at the end of it.
Yeah,
and that's just not. That's so irresponsible.
What is it,
it's
like
crazy.
the new apostolic Reformation.
Yeah.
Movement isn't NARMS or something.
The NAR movement. And it's the same thing. They're pulling all this stuff out of these prophecies and they're interpreting them themselves. Yeah. But my biggest question is what got him on? What made him think I need to interpret this for myself?
I don't know.
I mean, it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous for anybody to reject or refuse sitting under somebody else's teaching.
I've seen it so many times, and the main reason that I've come across when people question me, like, does the Bible really mean this when it says this? It's you're trying to get away with something.
Yeah.
Like it's wrong. The Bible says it's wrong, and you're trying to find a way around it. That's why you start questioning these things. It's healthy to be curious and understand the why. It is very healthy. But when you're like, this is what it says. This is the interpretation.
You're just wanting to know where the line is. It's like,
how far can I go?
What's the least I can do and still be called a Christian?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, what kind of, anyway.
Yeah. Well,
so
my takeaway is parents try to raise your kids in a normal, good way.
Please.
Because they'll either be David Koresh or a serial killer, and we don't want either one of them.
No.
Yeah, well, and mine is I'm not playing victim for David Koresh, but watch who you reject and try to bring people in and disciple them as opposed to just reject them and call them retardo or something.
Keep them away from your 12-year-old daughter.
And do that as well.
Yeah. No, this is so clearly a cult, and honestly, I'm wondering about a couple of these others too while we're looking into it.
The branches.
Yeah, but and it was also a very tragic situation. I think it was equally mishandled on both sides.
Yeah, it's just sad all the way around.
I can't even assign blame one way or the other because it just gets into it.
It's just a tragedy. It's what it is.
Over 30 children were burned to death, and about 80 adults. Didn't make it out.
And several law enforcement as well.
Yep. 4 law enforcement officers were shot the very first day when they first went in. And I had to agree with the ATF guy. They should have just called it off the minute they noticed something was wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, anyway, tell us what you think about all this madness, and it is madness. And then tell us how you're going to stay away from false teachers that interpret the Bible for themselves, because that's a little bit scary.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Guys, leave us a comment below. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe. Leave us a rating and a review. You know what we need you to do. So.
That's right. And you need to send us some money so we can recruit into Israel.
Yes.
Yeah. That's it.
No, we appreciate you going down these wild roads with us,
Yep.
and we want to hear from you.
And hit that thumbs up because Peter's got grenades on sale.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
I've got dummy grenades that are attached to our email address, revrab@hollygrovechurch.com. We'll see you
Later.